Hello there. My name is Fumitariya. It wasn't always that, but that's what it is now. After seeing my father's journals, I thought it might be fun to write down everything about my siblings, their personalities, and their quirks. After all, I'm surrounded by such interesting people, I'd be ashamed not to. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku is my dad. He took me and Kiba, more on her later, in and gave us a place to stay and things to eat. He made sure my quirk would never act up again. I can never repay him for all he's done. Not that he'd want me to. Aside from his green hair and freckles, he's rather plain looking. Izuku is the nicest person to ever exist. He holds no grudges, does not judge anyone, and rarely ever gets angry. He only ever seems to get upset when something harms someone he cares about. Or in some of my siblings' cases, when they harm themselves. He only really grounds us if we hurt each other or ourselves. Of course that means I've never got in trouble with him, that also means I don't get much of his attention. But that's fine. He's very busy. He is in charge of taking care of all the kids that fall under the title of OPC, basically all the most dangerous children in the country whose parents don't want them. As you can imagine, it's a hard job. Made harder by his trust issues, keeping him from hiring anyone to help him. The fact he keeps stumbling upon kids by accident in weird situations with dangerous powers, makes things, well, either better or worse, I can't fully tell. Dad is quirkless. Meaning he has no quirk whatsoever. Naturally, the world did what it normally does to people who are different. They mistreated and abused him. But like I said, he's the nicest person ever, so he's not angry about it. Although that doesn't mean I'm not. Kiba Midoriya. Kiba may have only become my official sister after Dad took us in, but honestly it feels like we've been siblings for much longer. She found me trying to steal food and helped me in exchange for my blood. After she found out about my quirk, she insisted that I become one of her minions. She was better company than no company at all, so I agreed. Best decision of my life. Kiba has long silver hair and red eyes. Her skin is very pale and she has long pointy fangs. She always wears a red cloak she and Dad made. Kiba is, at the best of times, obnoxiously loud, overly full of herself, and very simple-minded. But somehow she takes all those bad traits and makes them into good ones, most of the time. Imagine watching a cheesy actor play Dracula. That's how she acts, all the time. She insists that she is the vampire queen of eternal darkness and that she will someday take over the world. How is she gonna do that? No one knows. Not even her. She's very entertaining to watch, and given how much she loves attention, that's a good thing. Unfortunately, she does have a fragile ego, and can't stand losing or the idea of losing. But I think Dad is trying to do something about that. Another thing Dad tried to improve is her habit of breaking things. Kiba is very strong, and while she's not dumb, she's not exactly smart either, despite what her vocabulary would lead you to believe. This leads to her breaking a lot of things. A lot of things. Dad's very forgiving of this, of course, so she doesn't really get grounded. But whenever she destroys something big, he puts her through an hour of restraint training. Kiba's quirk is called Blood Boost. The more blood she intakes, the stronger, faster, and more durable she gets. At full power she can outrun some cars and lift cars with ease. However, the more active she is, the more blood is used up, and she needs blood to live. So she needs to be careful about how much she strains herself. Kiba's main weakness, Bedsy's lack of blood, is the sun. Not because of her quirk, Kiba was dedicated to her act that she avoided to the sun for too long, and now her body isn't used to it. I did mention she wasn't that smart, didn't I? Eri Midoriya. Eri is the most mysterious out of any of us. Her backstory is almost a complete mystery to everyone but Izuku and Kyoku, more on her later. And I do mean everyone but those two. Apparently it was so bad that they had to make her forget about most of it. From what we do know, Eri's quirk went out of control and accidentally killed her father. Her mother abandoned her and gave her to a really bad man who was in charge of a group of really bad men who did bad things to her. Izuku saved her. She was the first of the kids that Izuku adopted. Eri has white hair and red eyes, with her only other notable feature being her horn. Eri is extremely shy, and prefers to stay quiet and out of the way most of the time. This means that most people don't notice her or hear her over the louder kids. Dad wants me to make sure this doesn't happen, but it's hard. Eri's quirk lets her rewind things back to a previous state. Basically, she can return things back to how they were before. Like if you ate an apple, she could take the apple core and turn it back into an apple. This quirk is really cool, but it also has two big downsides. The first one is that she gets really tired if she uses it for too long. And the second is that it's really hard to control, and the consequences if something goes wrong can be disastrous. Like that time she rewound her father to before he existed. Which makes no sense to me. If she can bring something back to how it was then, how can she bring something back to when it never was? But anyway, she could accidentally make you younger or turn you into a monkey. Apparently it's because of something called evolution, or take your quirk away. Izuku and her train twice a week so she can better control it. He uses a metal ruler. Eri's quirk can't affect non-living things, so he doesn't have to touch her, and he has a trank gun, a gun that shoots needles that puts you to sleep, in case things go bad. As dangerous as her quirk is, it could also be used to save a lot of people. She could heal a person about to die back to full health, reattach lost limbs, cure incurable diseases. She would be a great doctor. Eri seems to have a strong fear of birds. Eri's quirk seems to come from her horn. The longer her horn is, the more powerful her quirk is. Eri seems to hate herself a little because of her quirk. I know how that feels. We all want to protect her. I hope we can. I hope someday we can make her smile. Kei Midoriya. Once upon a time I thought Kiba was the most energetic person in the world. Then I met Kei. If I didn't know what Kei's quirk was, I would have guessed it was infinite energy because she is always active. She is also very optimistic. Which is strange because the world, Natali, treated her terribly. She has snakes for hair and snake-like eyes, so naturally people thought she looked a bit scary. And instead of just getting over it, her parents kicked her out and everyone called her a freak and a monster. Her quirk didn't help. Anyone who looks at her eyes turns to stone. Powerful, hard to fight against, really inconvenient to live with. She can't turn it off either, so she just had to live a life of trying to never stare people in the eyes for a while. Then a villain kidnapped her, and used her as a living weapon for some time until Izuku saved her and took her in. The way she approaches her life in an upbeat, positive attitude is really admirable in my opinion. A lot of people like to complain about their lives, she just tries to improve hers. Anyway, back to her quirk. The effect of her quirk lasts exactly 1 day, or 24 hours. During the entire process the victim is completely immobile as well as being made of stone, meaning it is rather easy to harm or kill them. According to Izuku, when you're frozen you don't see or hear anything, and when you're unfrozen you basically continue where you left off. The snakes on her hair are also interesting. They aren't poisonous but they can bite you. Kei has said that they're technically alive, they're extensions of herself. Maybe they're multiple personalities? Either way, it's a simple but effective quirk. Although Kei hasn't shown any interest in using them and has a special face thing to keep herself from using them. It's probably a good thing, but still I just can't stop thinking about the possibilities. Sansen Midoriya. Sansen is the weirdest member of our family right now. I think I'll have to start with her quirk here, otherwise nothing else will make sense. Sansen is a sentient pile of acidic goo, able to move and change her shape completely. Now that I think about it, I call her a she and she takes the form of a girl, but she could be either one if she wanted to. Was she born a girl or did she just choose to be one at one point? Back to what I was saying. She was born with her quirk and accidentally killed her mother when she was born, because acid. Her family didn't want her and threw her around from person to person, and of course they mistreated her, because no one in this house can have a non-tragic backstory. To make it worse, one particularly bad family member stuffed her in an acid-proof jar and threw her into a trash heap, where she stayed for a year until Izuku found her. Easily the worst backstory I've heard. Eri doesn't count because I haven't heard hers. Sansen is tied with Kei for being the most energetic in the house. Sansen hates being still, probably because of the whole jar thing, and will move around constantly, typically shape-shifting her body in all sorts of different ways. Sansen actually does want to be a hero, like me and Kiba, and trains herself every day. She's probably the most powerful person in the house right now. Any physical attacks just don't affect her at all, and she's made of acid, so anything she touches she can melt, although Sansen is filled with a special chemical that makes her acid non-acidic most of the time. It also changes her color to blue. She can change her size at will and stretch herself too. And she can use her elasticity to power up her attacks to be even more powerful than Kiba. She's also strong in the water. She can move the water around with her body and shoot it out like a firehouse. And she can swim really well. She doesn't need to breathe, sleep, or eat, and she can't run out of stamina. She could almost definitely take on everyone in this house. Except Kei. Although she does have some weakness. If you can trap her in something small, sturdy and acid-proof, she won't be able to get out. And like I mentioned earlier, Kay definitely beats her. Sansan can though her entire body, so being even in the same room as Kay makes it impossible for her not to be turned to stone. And she also seems weak to cold. Seems like she can be frozen like water. Although we don't know how cold it has to be to freeze her. I don't know how she interacts with electricity though, not too dangerous. Kyoka Midoriya. It's actually kind of funny how she came into the family. Her old family used to treat her poorly, so when she saw our loving family, she got jealous, broke into our house, and used her quirk to make you think she was always part of our family. Of course she got caught and Izuku accepted her anyway. She could have probably just asked and Izuku would have accepted her. Kyoku has purple hair but otherwise is pretty normal. Kyoku is very distrustful of people. Which makes sense. Her quirk lets her see and change people's memories. And she's looked through all of ours and her old parents' memories, and Aries, meaning she's seen a lot of bad people do very bad things. According to Kyoka, her quirk is like looking through a movie. She can pause, rewind, fast forward, and watch it through like a movie. All she has to do to change it, is remove it and replace it with something she imagines. She could change your entire life in only a few hours. Make you believe you're someone else. Something else even. Most of the kids here are powerful because of what they can do to you physically. But Kyoku is different. I know why they're afraid of her. She could make heroes think of their villains. Turn normal people into monsters. Make people see horrors and think they went through them. The damage she could do in the wrong hands. The other kids don't really understand this. As far as they're concerned, she's the weakest of everyone. Even Kyoku doesn't know how dangerous she is really. Only me and Dad know. Of course there are limits. If she creates a memory that makes no sense or contradicts itself or reality, then the person's memories will return to how they were before. Example. When she changed all our memories and added herself into everything, she forgot that the pictures would still show her not in those memories, so when we saw the pictures, our memories were restored. Note, the person may or may not keep the fake memories, depending on how much space their memory has. Another thing that affects her quirk is space. A person's memory has so much space, so she can only add so many fake memories without having to take out some real ones. According to Kyoku, the amount of memory a person has depends on their age. Which makes sense. Shiruka Midoriya. Shiruku is the first kid to actually come from an O.P.C.C.C facility. Seems like her parents had at least a bit of dignity, and rather than throwing her out on the streets, they gave her to OPCCC. That's not saying she had a perfect life. The OPCCC is filled with uncaring idiots, so while she didn't starve or anything like that, she still received practically no affection and was basically stuck in one room her entire life. Still, she probably had it the easiest out of all of us, but that's not saying much. Shiruka loves making clothes. Specifically making them out of spider webs. Which may sound bad, but it's actually a lot better than normal fabric. More durable and, according to Kiba, very comfortable. She's replaced most of our clothes already, except for Sansan's. Because she doesn't wear any clothes. Shiruka's quirk is called Spider Queen. It's a mutation-type quirk that gives her the attributes of a spider. Her entire lower half is that of a spider, and she can shoot webs out of her butt. Apparently it's not a butt, but I don't know what it is, so I'm calling it a butt for now. She has 5 eyes and her skin is extremely pale. She has super strength, durability and speed that rivals, but is not equal to, Kiba at full power. Lastly, she also possesses the ability to climb on walls, and control spiders. Shiruku is probably the 3rd or 2nd strongest in the house. Right now I have her tied with Kiba, and both of them are below Sansan. So the list of strongest to weakest is this. Number 1 Sansan. Number 2 Kiba/Shiruku. Number 3 Shiruku/Kiba. Number 4 Kei. Number 5 Yami/Eri. Number 6 Eri/Yami. Number 7 me. Number 8 Kyoku. In a fight her quirk isn't too useful, but otherwise it's still really dangerous. Yami Midoriya. Yami was very different when we found him. Yami's parents both died in the forest, leaving Yami to have to survive by himself with only his quirk. His quirk allows him to absorb negative emotions from people and animals. He can turn these negative emotions into a black goop that he vomits out, and he can turn this black goop into nightmarish demon-like creatures. These creatures are primarily black and white, with skull masks and red glowing eyes. List of current creatures that Yami can create. with names picked out by Kiba and myself, with the help of Izuku. Ursa, a huge black bear with white bones coming out of it. Very strong and tough. Its claws are very sharp and dangerous, and its bite can split a person in two. Beowulf, large black wolf with white bones coming out of it. It's basically just like an Ursa but faster, and apparently easier to create according to Yami. Nevermore, a huge black bird. It can fly of course and also shoot out its feathers. Whomping willow, a big white tree with black apples growing from it. The apples have bone masks and sharp teeth that can tear through flesh. It can also whack people with its branches. List over. His entire body, including his hair, is white. The white parts of his eyes are black and his pupils are bright red. All of his teeth are also very pointy and sharp. Yami survived for years hunting animals and living in the wild. He'd never seen a positive emotion before. Oh yeah, he can see emotions. He met Dad. And because Dad is Dad, he kidnapped him. At first he was feral and angry like an animal, but after Kyoka filled his head with information, he became a lot more relaxed and lazy. Probably because he doesn't have to worry about starving to death. I mean, I know I relaxed when I didn't have to worry about food anymore. Fumitariya. Not much to say really. Parents abandoned me after my quirk came in. Was found by Kiba and then Izuku. Standard tragic backstory. Also, this is the official ranking of tragic backstories. Number 1 Eri, it's so bad we can't even know about it. Number 2 Sanson. Number 3 K. Hashtag 4/5/6 is a tie between me / Kiba and Yami. Number 7 Kyoku. Number 8 Dad, yes I'm including him this time. Number 9 Shiroku. Anyway, back to me I guess. My quirk allows me to regenerate from anything, basically making me unkillable. So long as I've eaten enough meat. I have to eat meat so my quirk can convert them into meat parts so I can regenerate. According to Izuku, I have to eat 5 times my body weight in order to be full. If I'm running low on meat, then I basically turn into a zombie and go looking for any meat I can find. And I mean, any meat. It doesn't help that my body parts will start to rot and fall off after about a month. Also, my quirks don't let me feel anything physically. Meaning I don't feel pain, but I also can't feel when people touch me or warmth or cold or anything. I also can't taste anything either. It also makes it hard for me to feel things emotionally. I still can, but it's hard. It makes being by myself very unpleasant. I also have very limited super strength and speed. Izuku explained that apparently the reason for this is that people's bodies normally limit how much strength and speed they use, so they don't hurt themselves. However, in times of panic these limits can be broken, causing great damage to the person's body but giving them more power. My body can regenerate, so it sees no use in having those limits. I'm about as strong as an average adult right now, but Izuku says I could get a lot stronger when I'm older. I hope so. I want to be a hero when I grow up. Kiba wants to be one and I'd like to be alongside her, and it just sounds exciting too. Also, Dad loves heroes. I'm sure he'd be proud of me if I became one. I should get back to training.